Prosecutors in the Tupac murder trial say they have receipts placing Keefe D in Las Vegas on the night that Tupac was killed. As Keefe D's defense was, he wasn't even there. Not only that, but I got some other documentation that I want to share with you to see what you guys think. You know what? Let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like the cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, click on the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of the straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really not new news. Like I said, if you go back over the lives that I've talked about before, I actually talked about the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department already having evidence that Keefe D was in Las Vegas and that he stayed at the Monte Carlo Hotel. They had did that investigation a long time ago. And so what a lot of times this happens is that, you know, the prosecutor will let the DA, or should I say the defense, come out and state things, as Keefe D's lawyer, Carl Arnold, has came out and stated that I don't even think it was Keefe D's argument. I think it was his lawyer trying to give Keefe D the best of a defense as possible to make the prosecution prove that they could put Keefe D in Las Vegas. But they had been said that they knew where Keefe D stayed at. He liked to stay at the Monte Carlo Hotel. It has now come to light that the DA has submitted new evidence, hotel receipts and information and documentation saying that Keefe D, in fact, was in Las Vegas and that he had rented rooms under his wife's name, if I'm not mistaken. But more importantly than that, we go back to the bail hearing, and like I said, in the conversation that he was having with his wife in the visiting room, and we see a pattern, right, from that perspective in dealing with this. And so now it's unfortunate, but like I said, once again, you know, nobody is responsible for this situation other than Keefe D himself. And I have other information that I want to give you, but like I said, now the defense is going to be what? You know, and if this is true, that they have this evidence and which they submitted to the court, right? If they have this evidence, now we take you back to everything that Keefe D has said to Greg Kading them in the beginning. We take you back to the allegations that Sean Puffy Combs and all of the things that he said in regards to that situation being true. And I was trying to explain to people, most people were talking about, well, Keefe D lied and this, that, and it. Look, you not in charge and I'm not in charge of whether he lied or not. The evidence is going to prove whether he lied or not and whether he told the truth or not, or what's to be believed or not from that perspective, right? But now the DA, they did some combing through. Radar Online actually did an article in regards to this, and they talked about the situation involving, and they were talking about how the DA basically submitting this evidence to the court, that Keefe D's wife somehow was, the rooms were placed in her name, if you will. But more importantly, in the Radar Online interview, which they didn't talk about, they had a picture of Mob James in there with a cigarillo in his mouth. And I don't know what that means or what that entails, or if that's part of the ploy or the plot that the DA is coming with. I do remember in an interview that Mob James said that, you know, and which a lot of us have seen on the internet, that he saw Keefe D them at Club 662. And so I don't know what that means, because they didn't say anything about Mob James. They just had the picture of him. If you go look at the Radar Online interview story about this situation, that they had a picture of him in there with a cigarillo in his mouth. So I don't know what that entails from that perspective, but it just seemed interesting to me. But more importantly, more importantly, what I'd like to go to right now is this information that the prosecution has also submitted in the court, and which is this right here. This is the statement that Keefe D had gave to investigators, right? Defendant's admission, and this is what they're using also. Remember, like I told you guys before, Keefe D was saying that he did all of the interviews on Art of Dialogue, Vlad, and all of those things for money and fame, right? Well, they have brung up the old interview in which he did, and basically we're gonna read it like this: defendant's admission in 2008 related to the murder. Prior to December 18, 2008, defendant was a target of the investigation of a task force created to investigate the murder of Christopher Wallace, aka Biggie Smalls. As a target, he was caught trafficking in large amounts of drugs. Pursuant to the investigation, task force officers approached the defendant seeking to interview him about the knowledge of the Christopher Wallace murder. Defendant denied any involvement in that murder, however, volunteered his knowledge about the murder of Tupac Shakur. Thereafter, on December 18, 2008, he provided a recorded version of events similar to the other recountings of the murder, all of which was consistent with the known evidence from the earlier investigation. On March 9, 2009, defendant became an active, confidential informant for the task force. As we scroll up and read more, right? So Keffe D was working as a confidential informant for the task force, okay? And all at the same time doing interviews saying that he was a gangster on the Art of Dialogue and on Vlad, right? But yet had became a confidential informant on March 9th, 2009. So they give us the dates. Defendants' efforts to corroborate the conspiracy. On June 17, 2009, defendant and task force officers traveled to New York in an effort to capture incriminating evidence from Eric Zip Martin. On June 19, 2009, defendant, acting in an undercover capacity, approached Mr. Martin's place of business and ran into Mr. Martin on the street. Mr. Martin greeted defendant excitingly, and they had a social conversation. Thereafter, Mr. Martin, his nephew, and the defendant got into his nephew's blue Cadillac DTS and drove over to see Mr. Martin's sister. After returning, defendant tried to enlist Mr. Martin in an effort to traffic narcotics. Mr. Martin indicated he was out of the business, but directed him to conduct his drug activities with the nephew. Thereafter, defendant and Mr. Martin socialized in Mr. Martin's restaurant for several hours. See, this I didn't know. I didn't know they talked extensively in regards to the situation involving Zip Martin, right? But listen, so the prosecution has admitted this into court, right? Because Keefe D has alleged he wasn't a snitch, he didn't tell, he wasn't this, it wasn't that. These are the facts of the information that he provided, not being coerced, not with anything else. He got caught doing something else that was going to give him a lot of time, and Keefe D decided that he wanted to turn to a confidential informant and trying to help with the case involving, basically stating after the fact that Sean Puffy Combs had put a hit on Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight, and that Zip was the person who had gave him the gun in Las Vegas. But this is where it gets really important. Defendant, listen, Keefe D, defendant has maintained that he was provided immunity for the murder of Tupac Shakur in exchange for this statement. While there is some evidence to suggest that may have been some sort of proffer agreement between the state of California law enforcement and or federal law enforcement, either in 1998, 1999, or 2008. One has yet to be located. So they don't even have a copy, or the copy of the alleged agreement, proffer agreement, that Keefe D said that he had. They don't have a copy of it. I would hope that Keefe D then would submit one to the court, but we'll see. However, even if this statement may not be admitted for the truth of the matter asserted, it certainly is admissible to attack the defendant's claim that he only made up these stories for financial gain. Remember, I told y'all what the prosecution was going to do in regards to that situation. And we see right now, this is happening, right? Task force detectives believe they had jurisdiction to investigate a Nevada homicide because the defendant asserted that the conspiracy to commit the murder began in California between defendant Eric Zip Martin and Sean Puffy Combs. Y'all hear that? Y'all hear that? So now, what I was trying to explain to you guys in regards to that, here we have it. We are back at square one. Now, they basically submitted the evidence that's going to place Keefe D in Las Vegas, right? They've now submitted this, this court testimony involving the case in Keefe D when he talked to and him providing evidence and becoming a confidential informant to the government, in which Keefe D had told them that Eric Von Zip, right, him and Puffy, they had Greenblatt's in Hollywood off of Sunset. Greenblatt's is now closed now, but they were at there, and that's when he said he wanted those guys handled, speaking on Tupac Shakur. He alleged that Sean Puffy Combs told him that he wanted Suge Knight and Tupac handled in regards to that. And the situation came about in Las Vegas, and where Keefe D also said that Eric Von Zip gave him the gun. Now, Keefe D's argument has been, I did it for money and fame, right? Told these lies for money and fame. And guess what? I wasn't even in Las Vegas. So they're going to attack both of those stories. And the story that they're attacking with this information, this documentation that they also submitted as evidence, like they said, not for the truth of the matter, but to refute the fact that Keefe D said he did it for money and fame. And at this particular time, when he went to try to hem Zip up, with the wire on, there was no money and fame to be involved. He was doing that for his freedom and because he had made the deal with the government and became a confidential informant, right? Number two, okay, I did it for the money and fame, but guess what? I wasn't even in Las Vegas. Now they've dug up the receipts, basically proving, and they're looking for video right now that they can find, basically also placing him in Vegas. But not only that, like I said, with the Radar Online interview, they say they have new witnesses, right, that they're talking to and possibly can come to get to testify in court. They put a picture of Mob James. And I'm not saying that Mob James is going to be a witness. I'm saying that there was a video that Mob James had did in regards to him saying that, he had seen Keefe D. And this is benign. This is not nothing that he was saying. He said this before Keefe D was ever arrested, that, when he was asked by Vlad, did he see, Keefe D and him in Vegas? And Mob James said, yeah, that wasn't a part of any investigation at that particular time. That was just answering a question, if you will. And then Keefe D kept speaking out, talking. Then here came the arrest. So from that perspective. But like I said, once again, this is where we have things now. So Keefe D whole alibi has been blown out of the water. And it's interesting to me now what is going to be his story now, because that's no longer working. And like I said, I told you guys a while ago that I would think it would be best in Keefe D's best interest to try to cop a plea, because if he goes to trial and he fights this and he goes to trial, I believe, to his detriment, that they're going to give him life in prison. And like I said, once again, Keefe D has no one to blame but himself for this. Like I said, basically they're saying that there was some kind of proffer agreement. They haven't seen, the prosecution basically is saying they haven't seen any kind of proffer agreement yet. I don't know if Keefe D has it or whatever. They say they haven't. It said, so even if the statement in which he made to Greg Cade and them, can't be used for the truth of the matter. It can be used to refute the fact that Keefe D saying that basically he did it for money and fame, because there was no interviews, there was no money at that time, there was no fame, there was no knowledge of even Keefe D being a confidential informant prior to the murder rap situation coming out. Not that, you know, most of the general public knew at that time. Anyway, so this is very interesting. This is going to get interesting. And like I said, once again, yeah, we ticking on November. November is when the trial starts, if there's going to be a trial. Yeah, but because of this new information, it changes the whole trajectory of the case, if you will. You know what I mean? It changes the whole direction of in which the case can go. And once again, we've seen during the bail hearing, Carl Arnold, who is Keefe D's attorney, basically saying that Keefe D's not going to take its stand during trial. This changes the whole dynamic now. And it shows that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, as well as the DA, they're playing chess. They're not playing checkers. And they plan on trying to win this case. And so, yeah, tell me what you guys think in the comments, man. Like I said, once again, this is going to be very interesting. Your boy Delray, straight gang.